This is the culture.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Cinema Wave podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Mark Jacobino. We're talking animation today, so I'm joined by my faithful co-hosts, Vinny Albano and Mikey Peniston.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
How are you guys doing? Good to be back with all three of you. Mikey, welcome back. We missed you last week.
Thank you. It's good to be back. Yeah, I'm excited to talk this episode. Really good episode.
Yeah, episode 10 of Solo Leveling. You've been hiding your skills. We're going to say Solo Leveling is not very good at naming their episodes, but this was a great episode. This was a banger. Great themes, great action, great animation, great music. What did you guys think about this episode?
This was, like you mentioned, such a banger episode from beginning to end. Honestly, I think it's my favorite episode thus far. I think out of the 9 episodes that we've been given, I think this is my favorite one. Yeah. I think that we're some of the cuts, we're going to talk about more in detail later on, but there are some animated cuts in here that are beautiful, that are just so menacing, and this episode just really delivered in not only character but theme and action, which I feel like going into anime like Solo Leveling, a action like kind of with a shonen type feel to it. This is everything I wanted.
Yes,
right here.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
How about you, Mike?
I definitely agree. I wasn't here for last week's episode, so I felt like that episode, just to give my kind of input really quick on that, it was a nice setup to this episode. I'll kind of leave it at that, just because I thought it was just a nice setup to this episode. But this episode, I agree, it was definitely one of the best. I don't know if it was my favorite as well, but it's definitely probably a second, I'd say. I agree, from start to finish, the episode just delivered. I thought that everybody in the episode delivered, performance wise, down, and just everything. I was pretty souped when I saw the introduction of this character, the new character. Did we ever actually? What's his name?
This purple hair guys.
Purple hair guy.
Yeah, his name's Kang.
Kang. That's it. I was pretty souped just because I could tell that this was definitely an interesting character, and he definitely fulfilled that. I feel. So yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the character performances, because when Sung Jinwoo does his voice just gets monotone and deep again, it gets me so hyped up. And then Hiroyuki Sawano's score swells. I'm like, all right, here we go, we're getting into it. But yeah, as a manhwa reader, I forgot, I knew it was going to happen. I knew that there was some type of assassin in the dungeon, but I forgot it was Kang. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's him, but he doesn't feel like he's going to turn into this sociopath, and he does. But yeah, I remembered loving this part in the manhwa, and I thought they did it justice. I love the cuts in here where it's just straight panels from the manhwa, the eyes are glowing, and it's half the body is black, and the particle effects kind of oozing off the characters. I was just like, they're nailing this. I absolutely loved this episode. I think it's my favorite, other than the second episode where they're in the double dungeon. I think this is definitely my favorite because I think it frames morality the best that we've seen so far. I think we've talked a lot about morality in the themes, and I definitely want to start there. So Kang kind of calls Jinwoo out, and he says, we're in a blood for money business, and it's going to change you. And I've accepted it, and I embrace it, maybe to the worst degree, but I do embrace it. And I wouldn't be shocked if it also doesn't come for you too. What did you guys think of Kang delivering this message and being this foil to Sung Jinwoo?
Yeah, so I really want to talk about that because they just blatantly say a Friedrich Nietzsche quote.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, yo, they just quoted Nietzsche, which is if you gaze too long into the abyss will stare back at you. Nietzsche is a philosopher that I read a lot of his works, and also Berserk is one of my favorite mangas, which takes direct influence from Nietzsche all the time. They even quote that same exact quote in Berserk. So when seeing that, it really brings in like our conversations prior to this episode of selflessness and selfishness and how Jinwoo is faltering on this line of a shadow. Jungian philosophy and Nietzschean philosophy, they talk about the inner shadow and staring into the abyss. That all of us, we have this dark ego to us, these dark temptations and dark intentions to us, and when we stare too much into them and embrace them, then they're only just gonna fester and control us more. So hearing that quote directly from him was a very like I was very much like nerd moment, like the emoji with glasses. And hello, yeah. So that was like my direct reaction to that, and I love that. Like you mentioned, it brings it full circle to this theme, and it's building and building on this impending doom almost, where Jinwoo acknowledges this and says like, hey, I gotta make sure not to fall into that trap. But it's still there. It's still impending. And he's still killing humans. Like, he kills another human here. So he's just stepping further and further into the abyss. Yeah, I found it very interesting.
Yeah, Mikey, following up that philosophy lesson.
No, I agree. I feel like you hit it on the nose nail, whatever that phrase is.
I like both.
Yeah,
like
right.
both.
You got it exactly right when you said it came full circle. I feel like it was everything that we have been kind of talking about and theorizing ourselves, and to see it come full light, and like we talked about that line that Jinwoo was facing, and to kind of visually see it between the two of them almost was like really cool. I also, maybe this is a hot take. I could be like, I don't know. But as soon as we were introduced to Kang, I was kind of like, this kind of reminds me of Jinwoo to a degree. And not so much, maybe it was, I don't know if it was ability wise or if it was just like that cool suaveness that it just like it matched, or if what it was exactly, but he was what I pictured a future Jinwoo looking like or becoming. And when he finally then said like, oh, like you might have some of that in you too, like watch out, like that was kind of like oh snap, like you could be like a future version of him, like, and you're saying it so like that. I don't know. It was definitely a crazy moment for me. I felt like as far as morality though, I feel like this whole episode was definitely just cemented in that theme. I don't know, just to see them kind of face off, and to know what Jinwoo, what he stood for throughout it, and what he's been standing on, and then to kind of still see these different versions of these hunters and like how bad they can be and stuff like that. And also just to kind of see like the build up to where we've gotten now as far as with Jinwoo. Obviously now he's like defeating, like, what was he, an E rank? Kang was in it.
B rank.
B rank. Yeah, IB rank. Yeah. And so obviously he's just excelling. It's cool to also see the people that saw him before be like, oh snap, like, well, this is not Jinwoo. Yeah, that's really, that's kind of, it's really cool to see that. But I don't know, it's as far as that whole morality thing, I feel like
there's so many ways to go with it. There's so many ways to go with it, and there's so many things I want to touch on from what both of you are saying. The one about the shadow that you mentioned, I mean, Kang even has a quote where he says, your shadow stretches into darker places. And the more, I forget what he says, the stronger you get, the closer you get to those darker places. I thought it was such a cool quote, and the camera kind of pans and follows the shadow, and it spreads out and bleeds into just like a darkness. And I was like, this is such cool storyboarding. You talked about the foil between the two and how they look so similar. There's shots in this where you have Kang with a dagger, same as Jinwoo, and he has the the particle effect coming off his eye that we've seen Jinwoo have. And there's another storyboarding part where they turn the characters sideways, and it's almost like they take up the full screen sideways, and Kang's one way, and then it flips it, and Jinwoo's the other way. And I'm just like, this is they're just doing all the right things here. So I love both of those points, and yeah, it just like it makes you think. Like, we've talked about the gamification of hunters, and you go into the dungeons, and a lot of them think it's fun, and you get loot and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, you are killing like something, whether it's a goblin, a dog, or wolf, or whatever. You are killing, and like that bloodlust can bleed outside of the dungeon. And I love that they bring this into it, because you can take Kang face value and just be like, oh, this is just like a psychotic person. But you can also take a step back and realize, you know, the Hunter Association is paying these people to be murderers, you know, and to embrace their like that side of themselves and kill more to get more money. It's not like hunters like in real life where you're just hunting to survive or sell food to people or provide for your family. You're just hunting to get paid, and it's just like a slippery slope. And I just in the manhwa I liked it, but in the anime I just love how this message came across. So yeah. Anything else to follow up on that? I feel like we can keep going on this.
I mean, I guess I did have a question, just because you did bring up the association and like them paying. I honestly didn't even think that hard into the fact of like the fact that they're paying these people to murder. Like, honestly, like that's like the reality of it. Though my question was, do you guys think that they're like oblivious to that sort of thing when it comes to this, or do you think that they're, because obviously this isn't the only case scenario where this is happening, but I feel like in the end when like they returned from the dungeon and you and like the association was kind of like, oh, like this is like weird, but like also like, who are you, like Jinwoo, how about you? It was like a moment where it was like, oh, like obviously this is a big thing that's happening, I feel like, and they kind of, it came to me, it came across like they were like very just like, I don't know, like low-key about it, not like not as like major of a thing, like they weren't freaking out to a degree, but it still was, I don't know, it was still a big deal. So I don't know, do you guys think that this is something that like the association, how do you think they're viewing this sort of thing?
I think they're just familiar with it. I feel at this point, you know, I feel like things like this, I could be completely wrong with this, but
no.
I feel like, at least from what we saw from Kang's supervisor, he seemed like he was like, oh, I should have just watched him a little bit more. Yeah. Right. So maybe they're just so used to this and so like caught up, going back to that theme of like corporate greed. They're so caught up in their own corporate greed, and that they just don't care. You know, they're like, okay, whatever. I was just, you know, we'll hire a new one, you know, which only emphasized that theme. And I guess time will tell, because we've only seen one example of this thus far, but if we see more and more and see that it really is emphasizing that these people really only care about themselves and their own benefits when it comes to monetary value and whatnot, then, you know, they don't care if a student of theirs or an apprentice of theirs dies, or you know, innocent people or other hunters die, as long as their pockets are getting filled. So yeah. I like that answer. It follows the whole morality thing again.
For sure. And we've seen oh geez, I just forgot what I was gonna say. But we've seen hunters fall or like be bad guys in the dungeon. This is what I was gonna say. In the dungeons, we've seen that the association knows that bad things go on in the dungeons, but they don't police it. So it's kind of just an extension of that. Like, they're not supervising all of this killing that they're paying for, which again is not a good thing or a precedent to set for people that are supposed to be protecting the public, or at least looking out for the public when these dungeons do pop up. So yeah, it's really interesting, and I love it. And I like in the end when Jinwoo's just like, all right, I'm gonna clear the rest of this dungeon, puts his hood up like such an edgelord, and he's like, I'm just gonna clear the rest of the dungeon, and they're like, Yeah, you should probably do that. We're gonna head out. But yeah, he's just embracing the drip. I appreciate it. Vinny, I wanna give you the spotlight for some key animators for this fight between Kang and Jinwoo, because we always want to give them as much credit as possible for working on this stuff.
Yeah. So I'll start at the earlier in the episode. When the battle first begins between Kang and Jinwoo and Mr. Song, and I forget the girl's name again.
Jun Lee?
Yes.
Jun Lee?
Yes, I believe it's Jun Lee.
Julie? Yeah. Something
Yeah.
like that.
Anyhow, when the episode first begins, we get this awesome, just like very bouncy, fluid character animation cut that the key animator on here is not confirmed, but it's presumed to be animated by Hajime Nakagawa. So, but it is beautiful. You see her, she drops to her knees while Mr. Song and Kang are just kind of clashing swords. And Song slashes, Kang jumps up into the air, and it's just like it almost reminds me of JJK season 1 with oh my god, I'm forgetting the director's name. Hold on.
Kabuto?
Park Sung-woo. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Park Sung. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's doing Ninja Kamui now, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
I believe that's him. It reminded me a lot of JJK season 1, where the character animation was just so like fluid and bouncy, and you see just Kang just literally bounce away. So it's so great. And then also to follow that, he then like blitzes across the room as like Mr. Song is just looking around, and you see as he's getting slashed up. Beautiful work there. Also, you have a cut by Kazunori Ozawa, who animated Mr. Song just sending Kang into an inferno. And it's just really nice just seeing that tornado type animation.
Yeah.
Very beautiful. However, my two favorite cuts from this episode, which one of them is just so dope. But so the one of that I'll leave my favorite one for last, but
Okay.
the other one is presumed to be Takafumi Tori, who, if it is, he's carrying this season thus far, because almost every awesome cut from every episode has been by Takafumi Tori. If this is him, it's awesome. It basically starts with Jinwoo bouncing up and down on his feet, and then blitzes towards each other at Kang. And I saw people online comparing that to Goku from Dragon Ball Broly. Before Goku fights Broly, he's like bouncing on his feet, like up and down, like, warming
Like a
himself
boxer.
up.
Like a boxer. Yeah.
And it is so dope. It's so dope. And you see the UI pop up, and he glows, and his eyes in this too, amazing coloring as well. Eyes are just completely blacked out. Just the shadow is casted upon him. They blitz towards him. You see this awesome foreshortening of how his face is so close to the frame, and his face is being like stretched out. And he takes the snake dagger and right into Kang. There's this great impact frame that just kind of as they depart. And then from that point forward, you get 30 seconds of just glory as Kang is poisoned. You get that nice, like, I wouldn't call it impact frame, but there is a special effect frame where when he's poisoned and his eye turns red, and just really quickly you see the poison across his face.
Yeah.
And it just all of a sudden like a heartbeat red, like boom, into the frame. Jinwoo goes back at him. They just exchange slashes in this super like snappy, flashy. It's an incredible blend of character animation as well, and like I said, foreshortening is used so well in this scene. Not to mention just the use of the 3D space and the like just camera work in the animation. They're just jumping all over this cave, and you just see the slashes from their swords. Jinwoo has like this blue slash, Kang has this orange slash. When they meet, it becomes purple. So it's just like and they're jumping all over the place. The camera gets close to them, and like I mentioned, some amazing character animation when it gets close to them. You see Kang has just like this overly psychopathic look on his face at one point, when his eye is red from the poison. Just such an awesome cut. Also, oh my god, this cut, sorry, I could go on and on. This cut ends with Kang using his assassin ability, and he just becomes invisible. And then you just see Jinwoo like, oh, where is he? And he's looking around, and the camera is just doing an awesome, just arcing shot around him. And also such fluid and subtle character animation here, as like you just like his movement, like they just put so much detail into this such a short period of time here, where they didn't just animate him just static there, you know, they had him slightly moving around, and just it feels so human. Some great work. And then my favorite cut of this,
I'll see if I can guess it, but keep going.
It is animated by Kota Mori, and it is so badass. It's when Jinwoo gets the upper hand on Kang and like you know, pierces him in the heart. And it's you know, Jinwoo activates his murderous intent, and you just see this flood of just dark purple like aura flood the room. Some amazing 3D just 3D animation here, as well as like the camera is zooming past the floor, and we get close to Jinwoo. Then his eye glows blue. You just see the UI pop up, murderous intent. So we're zooming and dollying into his eye. Then we're dollying out, and the purple murderous intent aura just floods the room. Suddenly, also great use of just concept here, because once it floods the room, Kang is like now in this ocean. Like he's stepping in water and he can't move. And then all of a sudden the color palette is black and white, and it's selective color. Everything is black and white except for red, and the red being the poison on Kang's cheek and the poison in Kang's eye. And the camera just arcs and pedestals up around Kang. Kang looks up. You just have this awesome shot where great use of foreshortening, like I mentioned again, just as we dolly into Kang's eye, and then we dolly out from the back of his head. You see these huge monstrous like blue eyes just come out of the shadow, as if like it was this giant owl looking at you. And that's Jinwoo's like just monstrous aura. Kang looks down, and boom, he's already pierced with the dagger. This was such a fucking cool cut. This cut was incredible. Just like such a clever use of concept, color design, the black and white, and even just like the line art here too. It just didn't remind me of Solo Leveling. All of a sudden, I was transported to like a different show. Like the line art reminded me almost. I got like Devilman vibes.
It did look like it looked like Devilman, and I also got Itachi's Sharingan. I got his like genjutsu, like when this happened, like because he just got transported to like a different world, and he's like, I don't know what's going on. I got like that vibe, but it did look like Devilman like drawing style. So very cool.
That's a perfect comparison. I just what a banger. What a banger. And then also, like I said, selective coloring with the red. As he gets pierced, you see the blood just soak his white shirt, and blood just starts seeping out of his mouth. And I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that was fucking great. That was fucking great.
I'm glad we have you,
So-
Vinny, because I could not do all the terminology, the dollying, the foreshortening. I couldn't do all that. So we appreciate you being here and doing that, because I could not do it.
I appreciate the animators here.
Yes,
Shout
definitely.
out Kutamori. He did a great job here.
Killed it. Mikey, I want to go to you. Do you have anything to say about the action? If not, I have another kind of question for you for this episode. Or do you want to comment on the action?
Sure, yeah. First of all, just like you just had me at the edge of my seat. I just relived the episode all over again. Thank you. But yeah, no, the action again. Just the reason why it's not my favorite episode is because I just still love that episode when Jinwoo first kills for the first time.
Oh,
that
yeah.
episode is just
Yeah.
like. But this, as far as action, is definitely the best I think that we've seen. Actually, I don't know, because that one episode he was moving kind of cool. I don't know.
That's valid. That's
Yes. But this episode, I just feel like, again, even like those cuts, like you said, every cut was perfectly done. I just feel like I don't know. I feel like the action just hit.
What else is there to say?
Yeah. What was your question?
So we missed you last week, and we talked a little bit about the Double Dungeon survivors and having their backstories kind of fleshed out. Like the one guy who's very selfish, like you see him with his son, like he was going back to save the baby. We see the girl, she has the PTSD. Mr. Song, he moves on, but he lost his arm. How did you feel this episode when we saw, people from the Double Dungeon dying here with this extra backstory and knowing their characters a bit more?
It definitely hit harder. I felt like having, just in general, all of these characters back was just like it was a familiar thing. It was very, I feel like for the last couple episodes it's been a lot of Jinwoo just like really finding himself and like going on these solo sort of missions. And like the times that he does, interact with people, he's either now killing them or or they're just not that important to the story right now. So it definitely it felt good to see him again. And it definitely made the story hit harder when we lost a few of them. Just because at that point we've grown with them, like you said, we gotten that story now. And it's like the first time where I feel like because we've had like weird bursts of like that story kind of thrown in, like the flashback, we talked about it, but I feel like this was one of the first times we've seen like that use of like a backstory kind of being fulfilled in the end. There's been a lot of times where there's been moments of flashback or weird kind of backstory where you're just like, all right, I don't really know how that pertains to this. So this I don't want to say rewarding, that's a weird word to use, but it was just nice to be able to see these storylines kind of finished out in the way that we did, knowing that we started with them in the beginning. And the ones that survived, it was really, it was just Jinwoo. What do we say her name was?
Joohee. I don't know. We don't even know if that's her name. I'm just saying Joohee.
Yeah, I keep forgetting.
I feel like Joohee sounds right.
Right,
But yeah, Song and Sung and Joohee, I think survived. They survived.
Yes, which also leads me to another question actually that I had.
Yeah.
I'll ask you to just because Paulie's looking it up.
Joohee.
Okay, I wasn't that far off.
Yeah,
Joohee. Not bad. Not bad.
Not bad. But then Joohee. The end beat. The last episode of the end of the episode when she said, like, do you remember this?
Oh yeah.
I did not remember it.
Yeah.
It's the date. Remember, he's like, buy yourself lunch with this, and he was about to die, and he's like, this. I was gonna take you to lunch, but I can't because I'm dying. So here, take lunch. So now they're gonna go on a date.
That's right.
Oh yeah, I didn't remember that either.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So she's like asking him to take her on the date now.
There we go. Okay. All right. Because I was a bit confused. That just made this episode even better. Now,
There we go.
it did, just because again, it's bringing back those storylines that we once saw. And I always feel like that's nice, especially now that we're coming to the end of the show and we know it is kind of wrapping up and we don't know what could be coming soon. It is nice to get some storylines kind of finished up. But there's still a lot of things that they haven't really.
There's a lot to do. There's a lot to do. I really enjoyed the storyline of the guy wanting to apologize to Jinwoo for being selfish in that original dungeon and now having the opportunity to be like, hey, we're hunters, we're in this together, like I shouldn't have put myself above you. And it's good to see like the Hunters Association, you know, we've been talking about them being morally gray, but it is nice that lower level hunters can have this camaraderie, like we're in this together. We're literally putting our lives on the line. It's a very like, it's not military-esque, but it kind of is like to a degree, like they are in the military together to defend civilians. So it was nice to bring in that aspect of it as well. Vinny, did you have anything on the survivors and kind of going through this with the inmates and everything?
Yeah. Not really on the inmates, but I wanted to talk about specifically Kim's death. Actually, before I go into Kim's death, just want to shout out Mr. Song. He's so good.
So cool.
He's
such a good guy.
Yeah, I love him. He's just like, he's so, when he stood up at the end for Jinwoo, I was like, yeah, that's
Kang.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, yeah, that's the guy. But Kim's death. So I actually saw people online. They didn't. Not that they didn't like Kim's death, but it was different from the manhwa. So I didn't read the manhwa, so I'm not sure on this, but I was reading that when Kim dies in the manhwa, then we have the flashback to him and his family. Compared to in the anime where we saw him and his family the episode last week.
Yeah.
So, and then we had his death. So do you think it would have been more impactful to like see that flashback with his family upon his death, or having that already like established the episode before? Or how'd you guys feel in general about Kim's death?
Yeah, I don't think I was like emotional about it. I just appreciated it more for Sung's story and like how that affects him now. I think it's just kind of an adaptation. Like you have to make some changes, and I think in a visual medium, I think this made sense because it makes you invested more in his character. I think, if on his dying bed he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Jinwoo," it might have felt cheap because it's like, "Oh, you say anything when you're about to die," kind of like you're always regretful when you're about to die. Like that makes sense. But now having seen that backstory first, you're like, okay, he is like a good person. He was just in a bad situation, and this is kind of his moment to try to reconcile that. So I thought that I don't think this was like a bad change or like anything to be like upset about.
Yeah.
I agree. I feel like it served its purpose well. It was nice having knowledge, I felt, on that, and then it made that moment hit harder on that last moment with him. And so it's interesting definitely to hear though that they chose to do that in the manhwa. Just I don't know if I would have. I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah. So it's I don't know. That's definitely interesting to even think how that would have been if it was like that. But as far as what they did do, I'm pleased with his death and how they did the character building up to it too.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I thought, obviously, like, I didn't read the manhwa, like I said, so I'm not sure how I would have felt with that type of storytelling. But I think, like, if it was like that here in the anime, it would have reminded me a lot of, like, Naruto, where it's like, whenever a character dies, it's like, all right, we got to give a lengthy flashback.
Right.
To, like, because that's, like, a whole anime trope, where it's like, whenever someone dies, you got to give them a 10-minute flashback of, like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I regretted. I'm so sorry that I left you alone on the playground. And I should have included you in whatever. But yeah, so I do agree with you guys. And I disagree with the people online because
good.
Yeah, because
the faceless people.
Yeah, because like it felt more like a true like story that you would see in like cinema or something like that.
Yeah, it was more like sequential and like everything was happening for a reason. So yeah, I definitely agree. I don't have anything else. Do you guys have any other big moments that you want to shout out from this episode, or we can wrap this thing up?
I just want to. I know you briefly shouted out Sawano's score.
Oh yes, of course.
At the beginning, but there's 2 tracks, just like the track that plays during the big fight, so epic.
Yeah,
And then also probably my favorite track from the episode is when Kang is talking to the prisoners before killing them. There's this beautiful piano.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh my god, like, what is going on? I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, just wanted to shout out Sawano because he's awesome. So.
Yeah. I could talk about Sawano all day.
Yeah.
The epic music that they play. I think it's level 4 or 8. The score, if you go on Spotify, I think it's level 4 or 8. It feels like You Say Run from My Hero Academia. Like every time it plays, doesn't matter what's going on, I'm like, this shit's hype. So I feel like it's filling that role for Solo Leveling really well. And yeah, the piano piece, I think they played it last week in a couple portions, but I loved hearing it again here. Sawano is just like a master with the piano. And I feel like a lot of the stuff I read is he ad-libs a lot of the piano work. Like in his songs, it'll say like ad-lib in the track. So he's just incredible. I have no idea how you can ad-lib on 88 keys. It's insane. So yeah, definitely always a shout out to the music. It makes this 10 times better. Like the animators, great work. Everything great, but the music elevates everything. Oh, it's so good. Mikey, did you have anything to say? I couldn't tell.
No.
Okay.
I agree.
I know you're a big music guy, so I think give you
I will actually say, just because, just thinking about how everything has been utilized and done. First of all, it's crazy to hear that he's ad-libbing. Like,
I don't know if he's doing it for that particular track, but I know a lot of his pieces in other works of his, it says like ad-lib. Like for a lot of them in the track list, it's crazy.
Oh god. Still, it's like it's crazy, and it's cool to think that like a scene like Kang killing the prisoners would have like a track. You know, it's like it's contrasting to a degree, but it also benefits it so much. So it's just, I don't know. It's cool. It's a cool sort of technique, I feel like, in terms of like film and music and sound. You know, sort of thing that I've noticed that he's done a lot with the score and the music. So
absolutely. Very good. Yeah. I think the last thing I wanted to say was from last week's episode, Kang. We saw the room where that guy was begging that guy to kill people. Was this a good payoff for you for that? Like seeing that it was him begging Kang to kill these inmates. Did you like how that all came together?
Yeah. So, thank you for reminding me about that. So, so, God, I'm trying to find. I'm sorry. I just stuttered like hella.
No
but I still think though that like that just the choice of editing in the previous episode is still very weird,
right?
Because it was just still so like out of nowhere, and I'm like, okay, what?
Yeah.
So, yes, I do think it pays off being like, okay, what is going on? Why did we just cut to a random person in a random room? So it definitely does pay off a little bit, but I don't think it was that satisfactory. I still think like that edit from the previous episode was so weird.
Yeah.
It was just so out of nowhere and so like no context given, and it was so quick. I was like, so that's just my thoughts for that.
Sure. Yeah. I'm curious if the edit after that scene is the prisoners and Kang. Like they transitioned from the Tiger Guild guy to that. I'm curious if the cut after that went to Kang first and the prisoners, and then it would make maybe a little more sense its placement.
Yeah.
But again, it probably should be after you show the prisoners and Kang.
Yeah.
So I thought it was cool because like you said, it was like you added a bomb to the situation, the prisoners, and you didn't think that would connect to Kang and this other scene. So I do like how that all came together. Again, I read the manhwa but forgot that whole thing, so couldn't really comment on it. But yeah, if that's all, I mean, we loved this episode. It was fantastic. So I'm really excited for these last 2 episodes. I'm so curious how hard they go. If this is what they're doing here, and then they got to wrap up the season on something great. So I'm very excited to see where they end this. So yeah, that'll be all from us today. If you don't already follow us, you can follow us at Cinema Wave Media on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Threads, as well as at _ Wave Media on Instagram. I'm Mark Jacobino.
I'm Vinny Albano.
Michael Peniston.
Thank you guys for watching. Peace out.